Joining us is a gentleman also who is no stranger to the Observer, always enlightening, telling us about the economy and of course connecting the dots. Let me say a pleasant good evening to economic consultant Ved Seeraram. Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening, Mikey. Good evening to all listeners and viewers.
Yeah, always a pleasure to have you on. As you know, we are in the election season. Everyone's in campaign mode. But again, it's only fair that the electorate get to have some questions answered and have a better understanding of where we are as a country and what needs to be done. And of course, the economy is one of those major issues. I've been reading what you have been putting out, and I must say it really is interesting. You're saying that one of the banks are hoarding FX, yes, foreign exchange, amidst all that is taking place with the shortage. Give us expand on that, please.
Okay, when you look at Trinidad economy and Trinidad society and Trinidad as a whole today, there are two major issues. One is crime, and the second is shortage of foreign exchange.
Right.
When you look at the supply of foreign exchange, and we have to ask the question, is it being fairly distributed? The structure of the flow of foreign exchange is that taxes and so on come from the energy sector, that's the oil and gas sector. It goes into government by way of taxes. When government receives those funds, they sell it to the central bank. Central bank receives the US dollars, and they, at their option, they sell to the commercial banks. That's one. Commercial banks also buy over the counter, like visitors and so on, that they come, they want to change. They go through the commercial banks and sell their foreign currency and they receive. So the commercial banks receive US dollars from the market, that is over the counter, as well as they buy from central bank. When they get that foreign exchange, they are not obliged to sell $1 of that foreign exchange. They're not obliged. There is no law against it. They're just what I would call ethical consideration that they ought to sell it, because what they have is a trading license, a license to trade in foreign exchange. Now, when we have to define what exactly is trading, trading is buying and selling, buying and selling. In any country where there's a shortage of commodities, and in this case foreign exchange, hoarding is more than an ethical question, and in many countries it becomes illegal to hoard. For example, in countries they'll have specific laws. You cannot hoard rice, you cannot hoard sugar, you cannot hoard a variety of commodities, consumables, and so on, right? In Trinidad, however, since we depend on imports for most of our items, we import 94+% for our food. So in other words, we need foreign exchange to buy food.
Right.
So I'm making the equation, by hoarding foreign exchange, you are hoarding rice, flour, medicines, and everything else you're hoarding. So the question of legality, where the government and the members of parliament have not looked at it, but they need to look at it now and ask the question, should banks be hoarding foreign exchange at a time of such scarcity and at a time where many companies, many businesses, many individuals, they depend on foreign exchange for survival. It's like water, that Wasa holding on to water. They're not distributing the water as they should, and they're just holding the water. They lock off all the taps. And they say, okay, we're waiting for you all to increase the price of water, and then they'll start to sell. And I'm saying there's far more than just an ethical issue. I consider this bordering on legal issues, and you cannot hold the country to ransom because you have been given a privilege. It's a privilege they have to trade in foreign exchange. Tomorrow, central bank can take away that license.
No, but hold on a second. But Mr. Sierra, hold on a second. And I'm sure the viewers, folks who are listening, but aren't the banks regulated? I mean, the fact of the matter is that what you're saying is that there seems to be no oversight. there seems to be doing whatever you feel like or need to do. At the same time, there are businesses that had to shut their doors. There are parents who had to bring their children back from abroad because it was a challenge to get foreign exchange. You have car dealerships, you name it. And as you mentioned, of course, it was critical for pharmacies and patients and what have you, people in need of medication, and even to travel, holiday, and what have you. All of that was a challenge for us as citizens. And yet, you're telling me that there's all of this money that is being hoarded by the banking institution, and there's nothing that can be done to regulate or to say, listen, this is wrong?
Yes, things can be done, but our regulators are sleeping at the wheel. That's a big problem.
Why is that?
I don't know if they don't know, or they don't know their responsibilities, or they're occupying serious positions by false pretense. But this is such a major issue, and that's what I am alerting the population with regards to two major issues facing this country. One is crime, and the second is shortage of foreign exchange. Shortage of foreign exchange. And that is why I wrote the article, hoping that the chambers of commerce and persons like yourself, good investigative journalists, could ask these questions. Now, I am prepared to write to the central bank, to write to the banks, the banking associations and so on, and please cease and desist immediately from this. Cease and desist immediately. And I'll ask the central bank, please do your work, as I did ask in my article. But I'm not seeing the outrage at all. I'm not seeing the outrage. So all I could do is to alert, and let me wait and see. I was very heartened to hear that the leader of the opposition said that when she gets into power, there's a high probability of that happening, that she will, and I will hold her to her word, because she said that she will appoint a commission of inquiry into the banking sector. Now, the banks, having exposed this, I would call it a nefarious practice, nasty practice. It is so anti-national that the banks will respond and say, okay, we are going to whittle down and sell out our foreign exchange holdings. FCB has over 1.2 billion US dollars. Why? Are they crazy? They're just sitting there waiting for a devaluation. That's what they're doing. No, you cannot hold the country to ransom of need. And that's the point I'm making. This, as far as I'm concerned, given the circumstances, it's on the verge, it's on the cusp of being a criminal offense. Criminal offense. Whether there's a law or not, there's something known as public interest. Right. You cannot, as an individual or a business person or the government, act against the public interest. You cannot do that.
No, you also put in your writing here that the board and management of FCB are reckless, greedy, and unpatriotic. The evidence is overwhelming to support such a description. Added to this is FCB's investments in the Jamaican Stock Exchange with depositors' money. You said what a reckless misadventure, and you understand the stocks were since pulled from the stock exchange.
Now, you will recall, Mikey, probably a year or so, or maybe a year and a half ago, where the Minister of Finance at the time was defending FCB's investment in the stock market in Jamaica. I don't know if you recall that.
Yeah.
Now, at the time when they invested in that, I think Barima, or I forgot the name actually, but when they invested in that particular stock started to rise in Jamaica, and he was defending the bank's decision to make such an investment and saying, look how much money they're making. Since then, the share prices fell, and my understanding was that the Jamaican Stock Exchange pulled that particular share from the exchange. It means to say that the FCB is now holding shares in a private company that is not easy to sell on the market. So they would have lost their shirt on that. But we don't know. We are not hearing the Minister of Finance. It's a new Minister of Finance. Maybe they can come out and let the population know. But are coming back now to the original problem, the original sin, as I call it. Because you cannot take depositors' money and invest it in the stock market. You cannot do that. You should not do that. Because you run into severe risk. And let me explain the risk. One is, when you take depositors' money, there's a liquidity risk, meaning to say deposit can be called on demand. Can be called on demand. You're investing it into the stock market, where it might become difficult to sell if the stock market start to crash. You can't sell those stocks, or if you're selling it, it will be at a huge loss. So where will you pay back the depositors with that kind of investment? When those investments are made, it's on a mutual fund, meaning to say you prepare a prospectus, you explain to the depositors, to the investors, that if you're investing in the Jamaican stock market, and these are the risks involved. When they invest in the Jamaican stock market, it's in Jamaican dollars, not in US dollars. So you're taking hard currency, you're investing it into Jamaican currency in a stock market that we all know is far more volatile than the bond market or the money market investments. So we don't know whether 200 or 300 million US dollars have been thrown into the Jamaican stock market, and locally we are being deprived of the access to those US dollars for normal living, for normal life. And medium-sized business, they're so happy if they can get 100,000 US dollars for the year just to keep things turning.
You're right. Now, one of the things that jumped out here, and I want to agree most of all, is the failing chambers. Now, there are various chambers in the country, and you said they have been silent on FCB hoarding, and you asked the question, why? Don't they have research officers? Don't they have the capacity to analyze and recommend? Don't they have access to qualified advisors? They talk a lot and expect government to provide solutions, but government does not have solutions. They are too busy mismanaging the economy to deal with the ordinary citizens' bread and butter issue. And that's the thing. These chambers are always seems easily to endorse whatever it is. If there's a shift, an economic shift, they say, well, we welcome it. We wait and see. We think that the government is making the right move. When is it? So if that be the case, Mr. Seeraram, let me ask you, who's really seeking our interest?
Exactly the point, and that's just the point I'm making. So hopefully, sensible persons and reasonable persons will see the truth in what I'm saying and be outraged about it, and write the FCB as an investigative journalist. There's no harm in you penning a letter to the FCB board and say, on what basis you are hoarding all this money? Why are you doing it? And write to the central bank and say, if they don't instruct all the banks to liquidate their surplus US dollars, surplus hard currency, and bring it back, pull your license. I'll pull your license.
No. What do you think that a new government coming into office should do? I mean, what are some of the key things they need to do to hit the ground when it comes to dealing with many of these issues?
Right, I'm saying bread and butter issues. Now, bread and butter issues, one is the foreign exchange, and the other one is crime. I think there's a lot of resources put together a crime prevention plan and so on. So I wouldn't get involved in that, although I could, because solving the FX problem will also help crime. I don't know if you agree with that, because if you're able to maintain the employment rate as is, rather than increasing the unemployment causes is a good cause for criminal activity. So we have to address it as a multi-pronged approach to crime. An exchange to save a lot of the SMEs for going bankrupt, but they are not moving. I've opened the door for them. I've requested some of the leaders in the chambers that I tell them I'll come and speak to them and advise them how to go about it. But if they are sitting by now, one of the problems is the banks now will look at it, putting it in troublemakers and call them and say, how much you want? 50,000 US, not a problem here. So the banks have a good way of silencing it.
All right, you're breaking up a bit. Just wherever you are, just stand
Yeah.
up.
Can you hear?
I can hear you loud and clear. And here's when you said that the country is, in fact, sliding down the slippery slope, where
Correct.
the poor is getting poorer, and the middle class is joining their ranks with alarming speed. I need to ask you this before you go. Do we still have a middle class, a functioning middle class?
we, we have a middle class in mind because it's very difficult for people to break habits that has been cultivated for 20, 30 years. So they're middle class in mind and they still feel they can enjoy the perks of a middle class by going visiting abroad, etc. So they've been living off their credit card and that's a big danger. It's a big danger for Trinidad where the banks are reckless in their lending. They're giving 100% to buy a car. Mikey, you know a long time, you had to put up a 20% deposit, before you borrowed the rest.
Yeah, you're right. And I want to thank you so much for taking time out to link with us. We do expect you at the UNC Town Hall meeting this Thursday.
I believe so. Was it advertised?
Well, it is taking place live from St. Joseph, all the folks there, and everyone is invited to come join the conversation. And it's on the TNT economy, the challenges and opportunities, and it's hosted by the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisesa, SCMP, with guest presenters. I hope that you are
Right.
going to be there.
Kirk didn't invite me to speak.
Wonderful.
So I will speak.
And of course, we go in depth in that into all that you spoke about this Thursday again, live from St. Joseph. Folks, it's at the La Jolla Auditorium, Eastern Main Road, St. Joseph, this Thursday, 27 March, and it begins at 7 p.m. Our good friend Ved Seeraram, of course, we hope to hear from him and other presenters on that night. This year, I want to thank you so much again for taking time out to link with us here this evening. And as always, very insightful. And I mean, but it's kind of upsetting at the same time when in fact people are watching and they know how hard it is, how challenging it is to actually try to get their hands on forex. And here it is that you're hearing that an institution is hoarding so much of that money. Thank you so
Yeah.
much again.
Yeah, thank you, Mikey, and thanks to all the viewers and listeners.
Keep up the good work.
Good night.
Yeah.